All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the City Council Public Hearing Work Session for October the 16th. We appreciate you joining us this evening, and a pretty full agenda today. So I will call this meeting to order, and the clerk will call the roll.
Mayor Brian Mock.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Jimmy First.
Here.
Councilmember John Mesa.
Here.
Councilmember Leslie Robson.
Here.
Councilmember Paul Stovall.
Here.
Councilmember Elmer Veith.
All righty, we'll need approval of the agenda this evening.
Motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor? And that is unanimous. And that'll take us down to public hearings this evening. I'll read the rules of order first. The hearing shall be presided over by the mayor. After calling the hearing to order, the mayor shall request that the parcels of property which are subject to the zoning proposal be identified and read. Following such identification and reading, the development director's recommendation shall be presented. The mayor and city council shall cause the director's written recommendation to be made part of the record. Proponents of each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning the zoning decision. If all 10 minutes are not used, the proponent's remaining time may be reserved for rebuttal. Opponents of each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning each zoning decision. The presentation times may not be reduced, but may be extended by majority vote, provided they're expanded equally for proponents and opponents. Anyone wishing to speak must come to the microphone, give your name and address to the city clerk, and please do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. And with that, we will open up the public hearings. First on the agenda this evening is 5007 New Peachtree Road and 1100 VJ Drive. Welcome, sir.
Afternoon. Matt Adams, Director of Planning and Development for the City of Chamblee. So 5007 New Peachtree Road, 1100 VJ Drive. This is application number PZ 2025-1535. Apologies, I've been negligent on this, and it apparently doesn't work anymore. There we go. So this request is for the construction of 141 townhome units with a total of 4,300 square foot clubhouse, swimming pool, and green space. In addition, the applicant is proposing 2 commercial buildings with approximately 4,000 square feet of retail and restaurant space and an adjoining outdoor patio. 40 parking spaces and 16 bicycle spaces will be provided, and the applicant is proposing to install a 27-foot wide streetscape along New Peachtree Road to include a 5-foot landscape strip, 12-foot trail segment, and 10-foot supplemental zone. 5-foot sidewalks are also proposed along the internal streets. There are 5 variances and 2 waivers requested. First variance from section 240-13B1N to reduce the rear entry garage for townhomes from 50% to 46.8%. Variance from section 240-13B1I to allow 200 square feet of private yard space for each townhome to be located in a combination of the front yard and rear yard, as opposed to exclusively in either the front or the rear yard. A variance from section 240-13B1R to allow townhomes to not provide a covered porch that is less than 8 feet wide and 6 feet deep. The front porch configuration is planned to have 4 feet 6 inches by 4-foot 6-inch porch. Variance from section 230-6C1A to increase the maximum 4-foot fence height with the front street yard to 6 feet for a decorative metal fence in front of townhouse building marked TH1. Variance from section 230-1B1B to reduce the 30-foot zoning buffer against NR1 property to allow retaining walls. A waiver from section 350-2C to not provide the required interparcel connection between the subject property and the adjacent property, and a waiver from section 320-12A2 to allow retaining walls to be placed within the 30-foot buffer zone adjacent to parcels zoned as NR1. Staff's recommendation is for denial of variances 2, 3, 4, 5, and waiver 2. A recommendation of approval for variance 1 and waiver 1 with the following conditions. The development shall be constructed in substantial conformity with the site plan and elevations dated received by the Planning and Development Department August 14th, 2025, with revisions required and by conditions of approval as reviewed and approved by the Planning and Development Director. And number 2, the applicant shall include in their land disturbance permit submittal of the federal, sorry, there is a typo there, submittal of the Federal Emergency Management Agency letter of revision for the floodplain on site to be reviewed and approved by the city engineer and public works. I'll note that there should be several public comment letters that have been forwarded over to you, and the information is scrolling on the screen. So you saw on the previous slide the site plan, and on the previous slide to this one, the open space diagram. You'll note there that the areas that are marked in green are shown as open space, and there is a large area in the middle that will be open space as well. Next slide, please. In this site rendering, you'll see the commercial area. This is towards the front of the property along New Peachtree Street, and several of the townhomes that start at the north end of the property. You'll note the area, the first set of townhomes underneath that text block there is the set of townhomes that are subject to the variance request for the fence. Next slide. These are elevations of the commercial property. I believe the next 2 slides are. This is the first of the townhouse buildings. There are, I believe, 3 sets of townhouses that are proposed, 3 different designs rather. Next slide. Next slide. And these are some of the materials that are proposed to be installed on the property, all of which comply with the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance. And these are our staff recommendations again. Again, we are recommending denial of variance 2, 3, 4, 5, and waiver 2, and approval of variance 1 and waiver 1. And with that, I will yield the floor and stand ready for any questions that you have.
Thank you, sir. All right, is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Come on up.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi. Good evening, guys. Thank you for having us here this evening. My name is Will Babcock, and I am speaking on behalf of Brightside Homes. This DCI is a reapplication and was previously approved in 2022, but did not move forward due to the economic climate at that time. Our goal is to enhance the city of Chamblee and improve the quality of life for the people who live and work here. Our office is right down the street. We are we are active community members and care deeply about Chamblee's continued growth and success. We believe this project will help revitalize the new Peachtree Road corridor by replacing a neglected light industrial parcel with a well thought out designed residential community that enhances the infrastructure, streetscape, supports the future rail trail extension, and helps organically grow the Ashford Park neighborhood. The development was recommended for approval by the Design Review Board last month, and we have our architects and engineers here to respond to any questions or comments. We are very grateful for your time and this opportunity, and we appreciate your consideration. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Babcock.
Awesome.
Anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Come on up.
Jason Connor. I actually live on Quinn Place. Mr. Mayor, you and I have actually traded some emails about 1100 VJ Drive.
Yes, sir.
And so our townhome currently, our deck, looks over 1100 VJ Drive, and that site and the business that has been in it for the past couple of years has been a nuisance to us, to say the least. So my wife and I, and we feel like a lot of our neighbors are in support of this neighborhood going up, not only to get rid of the nuisance and the visual appearance behind our homes, but also to potentially increase our values for having more townhomes near us. So just wanted to voice that.
Thank you, Mr. Connor.
Thanks.
Anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? All right, seeing none, we'll move on down to the next item. As a reminder, all of these items come up again a little bit later in the council agenda for council to ask questions. Next up is 3585 Ashton Woods Drive.
Afternoon again. First, I'll note that there is a typo on the agenda. The address is actually 3535 Ashton Woods Drive. I'll note that the advertising that went out did include the correct address. This was just a last-minute typo that I take full responsibility for, so
Very
my
good.
apologies. So this is 3535 Ashton Woods Drive. This is Pruitt Health at Ashton Woods. This is an expansion of a rehabilitation center and surface parking lot. There are two variances and two waivers that are requested. Variance from section 230-1A to reduce the open space from 10% to 0%. Variance from section 230-1B to reduce the 40-foot zoning buffer to 10 feet. Waiver from section 230-26E2 and section 230-20 to not comply with the landscape zone planting requirements and allow existing landscaping and foliage to be maintained. Number 4, a waiver from section 230-26E3 to not install street trees within the landscape zone along Ashton Woods Drive. Staff recommendation is for a denial of variances 1 and 2 and waivers 3 and 4. There are conditions that are listed should the council be inclined to approve this that we recommend that you include. Those are the applicant shall submit a written invasive removal plan prepared by a qualified land restoration firm. The applicant shall provide an engineered plan to restore downslope areas damaged by erosion from curb cut in the lower parking lot. And the applicant shall allow plant rescue of native species within the land disturbance area by the Georgia Native Plant Society or Keep Chamblee Beautiful, providing at least 2 months' notice prior to disturbance. So you'll note here, this is the site plan. The area that is being added is noted there at the front of the building in gray, and the parking lot that is affected is noted there in the center of the slide. This is the lower portion of that same site plan. You'll note there are several parking areas that are proposed on that east side of Ashton Woods Drive. Those were part of the previous application that was reviewed and approved by the commission, by the council. That is going to take some getting used to, along with the stair that is required as a condition of the previously granted variances. Next slide, please. These are the elevation renderings of the front of the building. You'll note there the steep drop off to the right, which would be the east side of the property. Next slide, please. Again, the steep drop off. Next slide. And again, staff's recommendation is denial of variance 1 and 2 and denial of waivers 1 and 2.
Thank you, Matt. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Come on up, give us your name and address, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Baxter Russell. I'm a land use and zoning attorney, 1776 Peachtree Street, Atlanta, Georgia, 30309, with the law firm of Dillard Sellers. It's an honor to be here before you tonight on behalf of my client, Pruitt Health, requesting your recommendation of approval for our request here before you so that we can complete a parking lot expansion project and a building redevelopment at the existing Pruitt Health Skilled Nursing and Rehab Facility on Ashton Woods Drive. Joining me tonight, we have several important members of the Pruitt Health corporate and design team, including Mr. John Hinger, Skeet Gray, and Bryce Jennings. We are all available. I understand questions will take place at a later portion of this meeting. I do have additional physical documents that, for specific topics that we may talk about, so I'm available to distribute those based on the questions we receive. Also have an in-person site plan board. I sometimes find that it's easier for me communicating with you to point to that board for specific things. So when we get to that portion, happy to go through that with you. I would ask that any remaining time from this initial presentation be reserved for rebuttal also. So if we can go to the next slide, please. This is an aerial view of the property. It's pinned there with the familiar Google Maps red pin. This Pruitt Health site is approximately 5 acres in size. It's located at the dead end of Ashton Woods Drive in the city of Chamblee. Our boundary directly adjacent to us to the west is the city of Brookhaven. In order to access our property, you need to drive through Brookhaven, just to kind of show how we're isolated there. Pruitt Health has operated a skilled nursing and rehab program on this property for over 20 years. That currently exists as a 157-bed facility offering a variety of therapy and support services for patients. Pruitt wishes to continue operating this facility, but improve site conditions and address some operational issues that have arisen as the facility has been successful and grown and as the area around the property has developed too. Some of those issues being parking on a narrow area as well as stormwater concerns. We can go to the next slide, please. I think it's important, as was raised by staff, and appreciate that introduction by staff, to frame our request in the historical context in which it sits, because in 2018, this city council, not all of you individually necessarily, but this city council approved an application by Pruitt Health to allow them to expand their parking area and address the parking that's on site. So that approval in 2018 included 4 variances and a waiver. That approval also included several conditions related to the development of the parking lot itself and relating to Pruitt Health's engagement with the City of Chamblee property, Keswick Park, and Keswick Forest next door. The 2018 approval is still on the books today. The variance has not expired, it has not gone away, and I think it's important to note that the parking lot location that was approved on the site plan tied to the 2018 approval is in the same location that we're proposing tonight. We're here tonight to fulfill and complete that parking lot expansion, as well as expand a section of the rehab facility. We can go to the next slide, thank you. So the current proposal is twofold. One, achieve what was approved in 2018, as well as seek approval for the building expansion. Regarding the parking lot itself, last year, Pruitt's design team attempted to take the 2018 parking lot approval, you'll hear me say that several times, through the permitting and land disturbance process. In that process, staff pointed out an important issue, that there was a gap in the approval. So what happened is there was never a buffer variance approved. The buffer code regulation was on the books at the time, but the design team on the Pruitt side, staff, city council, it was missed somehow because the parking lot location was approved with those conditions, but as we began to take it through the building permit process, it was noted that we needed the buffer variance in order to encroach into that area. Additionally, the building expansion that we're proposing now requires disturbances in that same buffer area, and so we have brought forward that request together. If we can go to the next slide, please, just about our request, because as staff listed them this evening, I think it's important to just remind you that the buffer variance is the primary foundational issue that we need to accomplish what we wish to do with this site, which is develop the parking and rehab some of the facility. The other requests, so the open space variance, the streetscape waiver, those all relate to the property's location and its isolation at the end of the street. So for example, the open space requirement, because we're now seeking to redevelop this property, it triggers certain requirements, like that we provide publicly programmed open space for members of the public to access and use, 10% of our site. Because of where we're located and because of the 2018 conditions, whereby we would develop a portion of access for the trail in the park next door, we think that we are accomplishing the intent of that requirement, and thus are seeking a variance to not program additional space. Additionally, the streetscape landscaping, we're requesting waivers from that in order to maintain the lush landscaping as is today. We will be providing some additional landscaping along the sidewalk, but we want to keep the rest of it as it exists now. Next slide. So you've already seen these. We don't need to go through it all, and we can talk about the site plan in more detail later if you wish and have questions. But at this time, I would just reiterate that we're seeking this request in order to allow the property owner to complete a productive and beneficial redevelopment of its property and its business. We're asking for your approval of these requests to overcome the steep topography of the site and to rely on 2018 approvals that were granted for this property. Ask for your approval on next Tuesday, and of course, again, available for questions, and would encourage those questions as well. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of this item at this time? Councilmember, how long did he have left?
Well, he spoke for 6:44, so
So,
I'm not going to do the math.
all right. Anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to this item? Come on up to the microphone. Give us your name and address.
Good evening. I'm Linda Martin, and I live at 3539 Hilden Circle in Keswick Village. And I wish to speak especially in opposition to the variance for the 40-foot buffer. That forest is struggling because it is surrounded by so much development. It's a really, really precious resource. And what they're proposing, if you walk the land, is going to have a lot of downhill effects, not only on the trees that they will take out, but down into the forest. And the ecosystem in the forest is already struggling. So the buffer is there for a reason. And I'm sorry, I mean, as a business person, I understand missing something like during the 2018 approval is really tough, but it was missed. And I don't know if that variance had been requested, if it would have been approved anyway. So it seems the historical problem doesn't seem to be that important or that germane. Thank you.
Anyone else here wishing to speak in opposition to this item? Come on up.
My name's Carolyn Weber. I live in Huntley Hills neighborhood, and I'm a frequent visitor to Keswick Forest, and I wanted to agree really with what Linda said about the precious resource that it is and the issues it's already facing. And also, in part of the proposal is to build a retaining wall, which we think would actually end up causing even additional damage to the forest. The equipment they would need to bring in there to build the wall would ruin a lot of the plants and vegetation that is growing there. So the retaining wall, while it may be a good thing, is going to have a detrimental effect just in what it'll take to build that wall. Thank you.
Weber. Anyone else here wishing to speak in opposition to this item? Did the gentleman wish to use his remaining 3 minutes for rebuttal on this?
Certainly appreciate those comments and want to say I've had the opportunity to meet with a representative of Keep Chamblee Beautiful. I hope to meet with more of them after this meeting this evening and understand the concerns and the work and time that has gone into taking care of that forest by volunteers, the time that they've spent and the work that they've put in. I think a couple things in response is I think that one of the real issues facing the area downslope from us is because of the topography, the stormwater flow that is just naturally occurring off of our site because of how those parking lots are designed now. There is tremendous sheet flow that, because of the date of when it was developed, flows across the parking lot with lower and upper now and goes down the pretty steep hill that just occurs naturally. What we're proposing to do in the new parking lot area is have pervious pavers that are going to do a much, much better job, and members of the design team can speak to this as well during question period. It's going to do a much better job of holding that water and allowing it to flow out at a much slower rate, thus assisting with the erosion issue facing the downhill portion of the forest next to us. Additionally, I think that while we certainly want to be respectful of the forest that's adjacent to us, I think that there may be some confusion and some lines getting crossed about what exactly property we control as Pruitt Health and what property is in the city-owned public park area. That's an issue that's come up for us recently in regards to trails being across our site, and we can get into that further. But while we are requesting to encroach on the buffer space on our property, we're not requesting to go into public land. It is a portion of our property that we're requesting to use as a property owner and maintain carefully and respect, but we wish to, we present those in good faith as owners of our site. Happy to answer any further questions, but that's all I'll have for now.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, last call for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. All right, seeing none, again, this item comes up further in the agenda for council comments and questions. This takes us down to 3800 Century Parkway Northeast.
Hello again. So 2800 Century Parkway Northeast, this is application, let me get my alligator clip out of the way, PZ 2025-1552. There is one variance for the council to consider for the installation of a sign on a commercial high-rise property. That is variance from section 260-9A5A to increase the maximum sign area from 200 square feet to 229 square feet. Staff has recommended denial of this variance. Next slide, please. So you can see here the site location directly adjacent to I-85. The building that is in question is noted by the blue dot inside of the larger blue buffer. Next slide, please. Here is the facades of the existing structure where the sign would go. You'll note on the left that is the proposed location of the sign, and on the right there is a existing signage on the northern facade that is compliant with the requirements of the UDO. Next slide, please. Again, the variance request is to increase the maximum sign area from 200 square feet to 229 square feet, and staff has recommended denial of this variance.
Thank you, sir. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Josh Mahoney. I'm an attorney at Battle Law PC, 3562 Habersham, Northlake in Tucker, Georgia. And I'm here this evening on behalf of South College discussing the proposed variance to increase the proposed sign by about 12.7%, 29.1 feet over that 200 square foot maximum. I have a short presentation for you this evening, so let's go ahead and get started. On the very next slide, we've got again, the location of the building. It is right adjacent to I-85, and you'll notice that there's no residential immediately abutting this building. We've got I-85 to the east, as well as some other kind of mixed-use business center style buildings to the south and to the west. And on the next slide, you'll see why that is. The zoning for this area is MUBC, and we are surrounded on all sides by that zoning. So we don't have any residential immediately abutting us. The sign will not face any residential. And so we don't think that this will cause any kind of issue for anybody who is living nearby. What is right next to us, though, is I-85. And so on the next slide, we can kind of get a sense of where we are and what we're looking at. This sign will face the expressway, and it's meant to be seen by folks who are driving north on I-85. And so folks are traveling 55 miles per hour. and they've got just a little bit of time to see this sign as they go by. You'll notice that on the left side, we've got South College. They've got a sign there today on their existing building. They received a variance for that sign in 2018, and I've got the conditions for that at the end of my presentation, but that sign, those signs you see there, those are 246 square feet. And so what we're requesting today is about 17 square feet smaller than what's currently there. However, you'll notice that the proposed location of the new sign is quite a bit further away. It's higher up, and as you're driving, you can see the building appears to be further away. In the staff report, we read that this building is one of the tallest in the city. And so what we're dealing with is a matter of, or really an issue that comes from perspective. If we put a 200 square foot sign at that location, it will be unreadable. You take the 246 square foot sign that we've got here, and it's quite legible, but it's also closer to the street. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is the sign that we're proposing, just the plan to show you what it will look like, as well as that square footage there. We've got it laid out here as it will lay on the building, and on the next slide it really demonstrates what it will look like as you're driving north on I-85. Now, I have some photos I'd like to share with you. What these are, and I'll pass them out, I'll come back to them. This is a photo I just pulled from Google Maps. This is the Google Maps driver's perspective, if you will, as if they were driving south on I-85. The building that we're discussing is right there to the right, and the sign, that's the Sherwin-Williams sign that's on the other side of the building. If you can see it, that is what that looks like. As you can see, it's nearly impossible to see in this photo. And then I happen to drive by this every day on my way home from work. I drive home from Tucker to Lindbergh, and I only just noticed this sign when I took on this case. I've been driving that same route for about 4 years now, didn't know the sign was there. And what I think this does is it shows that while that sign is compliant, it's not visible. And so the restriction that has been placed on signs here in the city, it's not working when it comes to visibility. So we really need a little bit of a larger sign so that we can increase that visibility and be seen by folks who are traveling along I-85. What we've requested is just a modest increase above the maximum from 200 to 229.1. And on the next slide, we can go back to, this is the approval from 2018. And in 2018, staff recommended approval of this variance with conditions to cap the size of the sign at 250 square feet. The sign I showed you again was 246 square feet. So we would actually be complying with these conditions and coming in at an even smaller size. We'd be even more compliant. So we're asking this evening that you all consider an approval of this application. I understand there'll be questions later. I'm happy to help with those. And then I will reserve the rest of my time for rebuttal. Thank you.
Anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, we'll move on down. Matt, looks like the next item is 3641 and 3643 Pierce Drive, sir.
That is correct. So this item, the applicant has requested a deferral so that they can explore design alternatives and bring that before staff to review and make recommendation for the council at a future date. Very quickly, this is variance from section 240-7B8E to not place a commercial dumpster in the rear yard 5 feet from the property line. Staff's recommendation is approval of the variance with conditions relating to the site plan being in substantial conformity with the plan received by the Planning and Development Department on August 21st, 2025, And 2, that the enclosure be constructed of brick or masonry materials that are similar to and/or complementary with the existing primary structure.
Thank you, sir. All right, I understand the applicant is asking for a deferral, but since it's on the agenda, and is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Howard Slomka. I'm here on behalf of the owner. And the deferral is, right now is in theory. We think we're going to defer because we have a better solution. But with regard to what we've requested, I want to make sure that the council is aware this dumpster is exactly where it was 20 years ago. It hasn't moved. There is no rear yard to this particular structure. It has always been in the side yard. It's going to stay in the side yard. We were here to get a variance to clarify, and the condition that came back said that we would need to.
With all due respect, I need to interject real quick. If you're deferring or not deferring, if you're deferring, you shouldn't be speaking.
We are not deferring yet.
Oh, then you're actually presenting right now?
Yes, presenting.
Okay. Did I miss that?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize.
No, I appreciate the clarification.
I was very confused for a second there.
So the staff recommendation came back with conditions, and I want to point out the window out here. This is the condition that we were hoping for, which is an attractive wood fence that would surround our dumpster, just as this fence out here surrounds that HVAC unit. What came back is a bit more expensive, and we can discuss later a possible compromise, which would be to fence in the entire side yard. If we fenced in the entire side yard with an attractive wood fence, the dumpster would be invisible to everybody, and I think that would satisfy the code. We can discuss that later. And finally, I want to make sure that council is aware that this is bordered only by a private right-of-way. It's not a road. Effectively, you're on private property even to see our dumpster. It's invisible other than standing on private property. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? All right. We'll move on out of public hearings down to, looks like approval of the minutes. Did anyone see anything that needed to be changed or amended on those? Very good. We'll move on down. Looks like we have a second read of transient pet sales. We'll need to take action on that on Tuesday. And that'll take us down to staff action items. I don't even want to talk about this. 2026 benefits renewal.
Button up. It's going to be fun. We actually have Jennifer Burke here this evening, and she will be presenting this item.
Very good. Welcome home.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Jennifer Burke. I am the City of Chambly's Human Resources Director. It's a pleasure to be here with you all this evening. I have with me some representatives here from Acrisure, our benefit brokerage firm, and I'd like for them to come up and just quickly introduce themselves so you can put names and faces together.
Good evening. It's nice to see you all. I'm Jeff Bloom. I'm part of the Acrisure leadership here in Atlanta, alongside Stephanie Hernandez and Steve Hendry as part of our account management team. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's been some recent changes with Acrisure in the last few months, actually. You may remember Leah Shuford, who was with us for many years, and she resigned for some personal reasons, and so there's been some account management changes, and that's why I wanted to make sure that you understood who these new faces are here this evening. Okay, 2026 benefit renewal. It's a lot. Here we go.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. That's right. Glad you're seated. As you know, every year we come together to go through this process where the city works with our brokerage company to go out and look at what benefit offerings are out there. And we always have a focus on what's best for our employees, but what's also best from a cost containment standpoint. And I know that you all are aware of what's gone on with market trends, with healthcare specifically. And so there's just been a lot that's really come to head this year, and that's why we are where we are in our discussions this evening. So, just as way of background, again, we have looked at employee cost share in the last few years. We've determined that there would be a percentage share that would be set between the employer and the employee, so that as we saw increases to premiums over time, there would be a more equal share of that premium with employees. We've had a traditional copay plan for well over 10 years. There have not been really any major design changes to that plan in that 10-plus year time frame. So we'll talk a little bit later about how that has played into this a little bit as well. In 2025, we had our life and disability carrier change from United Healthcare to the Hartford Group. And one of the things that we're also going to see impacting tonight's discussion are high claim costs that have hit our plan spend. So what that means is when we have our plan, the amount of money that the insurance company is having to pay out has increased substantially year over year. Specifically in the last 2 years, insurance carriers like to see a loss ratio of around 85%. We've been trending 128%, 122%. With us being a relatively moderate to small-sized organization, all it takes is a couple of individuals or family members on our plan who have something that happen. Unfortunately, it could be something catastrophic or cancerous that results in these high-cost claims that are covered primarily by the insurance after they hit the low deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums that we have. That drives those loss ratios up and makes it more difficult for us to seek favorable renewals. Cigna's 2025 renewal had a 15% rate cap. That rate cap had a caveat in it that basically said if there are any high-cost claimants over $300,000, it triggers the plan to void that rate cap. And so that's what we found happened going into this renewal cycle. We had a high-cost claimant or two on our plan that unfortunately exceeded that threshold, and it voided that rate cap. Okay, any questions so far? Okay. Our renewal time frame. So we're here in October talking about benefit renewal. Next week, you all will vote on how you'd like to proceed and move forward for 2026 benefits. We'll then start working on building out that benefit administration portal where everyone logs online and they make their benefit selections for the 2026 plan year. In November of this year, we will make those benefit elections and get those files sent over to carriers so that benefits become effective January 1st of 2026. All right, current benefits. In 2025, we have medical, dental, and vision all with Cigna. We have our life and disability insurances with the Hartford Group, and then we've stuck with everything benefits for our FSA and HSA accounts. Our 2025 medical plans, there are two of them. One is a traditional copay plan. It has in-network only benefits. It's the one that I've talked about being around for well over 10 years. I think everyone's real familiar with that one. It is a highly popular plan. We do have a majority of our staff enrolled in that particular plan. We also have a consumer-driven healthcare plan, which is a nice way of saying a high deductible plan. That has an employer-funded HSA, which allows a triple tax advantage option for healthcare savings. So when we come together, again, we're looking at cost containment. So how can we control and manage cost for employees and the organization over time? We're wanting to make sure that we are encouraging employees to take proactive measures toward improving their health by having employee health engagement and wellness engagement here, even at work. We're looking at coverage continuity. We want to make sure that we are not having situations arise where employees are having several physicians that are no longer part of their insurance coverage, or their medications are no longer covered. We want to make sure that there's a continuation of those providers and those medications. And also, we want to make sure that we're offering those really rich benefits that have helped us to be a leader in the market, to be able to offer to our employees as a recruitment and retention incentive. Renewal summary and considerations. When we went out to renewal this year, we sought RFPs from Aetna, Anthem, Cigna, and United Healthcare. Anthem and Aetna, they just declined to quote. They looked at our loss ratios and they said, we can't even give you anything that would be favorable for you to look at. Cigna came back and they said, well, seeing how your organization has been trending, just to renew medical only is a 31% increase. That is the largest increase that we have had proposed to us in the nearly 9 years that I've been with the city of Chamblee. Okay. In good faith effort, we went back to Cigna and said, what if we make some minor plan design changes to this decade-old copay plan that we have? In good faith, would you be willing to work with us and maybe bring that renewal rate down? And they came back and they said, well, sure, how about 27.4%? Not good enough, Cigna, not good enough. So UHC, on the other hand, came back with some extremely comparable plans and some pretty significant savings over Cigna. And I should really call that more of a cost avoidance, right? There's still an increase, and if we're going to use correct terms, let's be honest, we're not really saving money, but we're just not incurring the same costs we would have if we renewed for similar plans with Cigna going into 2026. Okay. UHC also offers a rate cap of 19.9%, which is higher than Cigna's 15. However, I believe this is a testament to UHC's commitment to the city of Chamblee in that they are not having any exceptions on high-cost claimants. So there's nothing that would trigger that rate cap to be void going into 2027. Okay. Any questions so far about any of that? Okay. Considerations, though, if we make a change to carrier. There are situations where employees may have to go through new step therapy programs for their medications. This can be a good thing. There are a lot of new medications that have hit the market, and people sometimes fall into habit of staying on the medication they're on because it works and their doctor's pushing it, and that's, why fix something if it's not broke? However, going back through a step therapy program might encourage conversations with their physicians to get them to explore other options that could potentially be better suited for them or be a cost savings not only for us as an organization but for them and their personal finances. However, I do want to mention there are situations where prior physician authorizations can be honored by UHC because there are situations where employees or their spouses or family members could have medical conditions where they cannot switch a medication. And UHC is willing to consider that so that they're not left high and dry without a medication that may be the only one available or the only one for specific medical reasons is necessary for them to remain on. Okay. We're also going to have to look at case management. So what that means is if an employee has an ongoing case, I can give a pregnancy as an example. If they have a provider that is in the network with Cigna, and maybe they're not in that network with UHC for some reason, we would have to work with UHC on carrying that case over and having it honored in those types of situations. It typically happens with things like cancer, pregnancies, and that sort of thing. I will say with UHC, we actually see a larger inclusion of providers in the UHC network, and there are very minimal disruptions to providers and to prescription medications. So that is a good thing. We're not seeing anything that would be a major disruption. We're talking fewer than 10 employees or 10 medications that would have some sort of requirement for them to consider some sort of continuity of care or case management. Alternatively, that would require them to either pursue that step therapy program or prior physician authorization. Okay, so one of the things that we're going to talk about tonight is looking at the copay plan and making some potential changes to that. Want to look at this example that we've put in a table here for you because I think it really speaks to the meat of the conversation. In year one, these are easy math numbers. If an employee has $5,000 in medical claims, the current employee deductible is $750. So the city of Chamblee's health insurance plan has paid $4,250 of those medical claims. In year 2, if there is an 8.5%, which is sort of the average of what we're seeing in annual healthcare cost increases, if that medical claim then rises that 8.5%, it is now a $5,425 claim. If we are not changing that employee deductible of $750, the city is now absorbing $4,675 of that claim. That's roughly a 10% increase. However, if we do make changes, the far right column demonstrates that same 8.5% increase to the claim, but moving the employee deductible upward to $1,000, which is not a massive jump. It is an increase, though, and I don't want to dismiss that. However, the impact to the overall plan is $4,425 in this example, a roughly 4% increase. So what we're seeing here is less planned spend. Okay? So when we're talking about looking at those loss ratios and how much the plan is having to spend, this is an example, a visual example of what we're talking about. And if we're not making some thoughtful changes over time, the plan is paying for more and more and more of those healthcare costs as they continue to rise. And there's not necessarily that share there that I think we may need to start looking at. Any questions regarding this slide? Okay. Okay, looking at a plan cost comparison, this is representative of bundled medical, dental, and vision plans. So we have here the Cigna 2025 current medical, dental, and vision bundling and the annual total cost for that. If we move to renew with Cigna, as is, no changes, we're looking at bundled, not just the medical, but together bundled with that little bit of savings, a 29.6% increase, which is roughly a little over $1 million in cost to the city. If we renew with plan changes and it's bundled, we're looking at an increase of around $923,000 to the city. Moving to UHC, if we left things as close as possible to as they are in 2025, we're looking at a bundled increase of 9.5%, which is a $336,000 increase from current. That's a savings of nearly, or not a savings, but a cost avoidance of around $707,000. If we move to UHC with some of those proposed changes to plan design that help us kind of get ahead or catch up to the cost share that we might need as we see healthcare trends increasing, we're looking at a 4.9% increase, roughly $174,000 increase to the city, which is a cost avoidance of around $750,000. Questions here? Okay. Looking at Cigna versus UHC, so again, this is just a high-level recap of where we're sitting today. So as is with Cigna, just the medical is a 31% increase. With changes just for medical is that 27.4%. If we're looking just at medical changes with UHC, as is 9.9%, or with changes is 8%. Now these percentages look a little different because we're isolating medical in this example versus talking about it as a bundled package of benefit offerings. All plans here are offering, a wellness incentive. They're offering $0 preventive care medications. They're offering employee assistance programs. The number of plans, though, that are offering an out-of-network benefit do look a little different. With Cigna, we only have one plan with an out-of-network benefit. Moving to UHC would then add back a second plan that has an out-of-network benefit. Okay. Questions? Okay. Looking here at Cigna versus UHC, if we're looking at the proposed changes to the plan design, this is a slide here that says, what if we don't do any changes to plan design? What does that look like? With UHC's plans, I do want to highlight here that they Couldn't match exactly on the prescription medications, but came very close. And there's a slight increase that would be there to that Tier 1 medication, going from a $5 copay to a $10 copay, but then Tiers 2, 3, and 4 all drop in their copays. Okay. Questions here? Okay. Next slide. These are the changes that we would be looking at if we make plan design changes. So all the items that you see that are highlighted in yellow are the changes that would be made. There are some savings or additional benefits that are then marked in boxes. So we see here in this diagram, if we are looking at those plan design changes, we're seeing that slight increase to the employee and family deductible. We're seeing some slight changes to copays for primary care, specialist, inpatient, outpatient, urgent care, and emergency room. With UHC, we see some slight savings with prescription medications, and then we see those out-of-pocket maximums that have shifted just a little bit as well. Any questions here? Okay. What? Saving all your questions for the end? I like that strategy. Okay, so looking at our contribution strategy, this is where earlier in the conversation I was mentioning that the city has committed to a cost share percentage for the premium cost that the employer pays versus the city of Chamblee employees paying. And if we map that out and we look at what employees are currently paying, and then in yellow are the proposed increased costs based on plans that could be chosen. If we move forward with Cigna, there you see in orange what the year-over-year monthly increase to employees would be in terms of premium. It is fairly significantly higher in some cases than moving forward with the UHC option. So there's some savings there for employees by moving to UHC as well. Any questions here? Nope, saving them till the end, like it. All right, there's further savings, obviously, with plan design changes, and you can take a look at those numbers. I'm not going to spend too much time on this particular slide. With dental and vision, we went out, we looked at what other options there would be. We could either stay with Cigna and keep those as is, or we can get an additional savings to overall premiums by having them bundled with UHC medical. One thing I do want to point out is while there would be a slight increase to employee vision, they would receive additional discounts on frames and lenses, so that they're saving some money on one end and paying a little more on the other, and it kind of is a wash in the end. Currently, everything is bundled with Cigna, yes. Okay, so staff recommendations. I know we've talked about a lot, and there's been a lot of communication prior to this meeting tonight because it's a lot to digest. The staff recommendation ultimately is listed here to bundle the medical, dental, and vision with UHC for 2026, to come up with a 3-year benefit strategy for the city, to look at adopting some of those modest plan design changes in year 1 of that 3 years. So in 2026, looking at it and saying, we're going to make those slight tweaks to some of the deductibles, out-of-pocket maximums, and copays, and then evaluate what that looks like going forward for the next 3 years. Renewing life and disability plans with the Hartford Group, not making any changes there. We couldn't get a better offering for those at this time. Renewing FSAs and HSAs through EBC. Continuing employer HSA contributions exactly as they are in 2025 for 2026, and then continuing those wellness incentives for employees and their spouses, as well as the tobacco surcharges. Questions? And I'll ask my
Councilmember
Acrisure
Mason.
team to come up here too as backup in case they get real deep. Okay.
So, as one of the more senior members of council, I'm on more than my fair share of medications. And so, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to pay, a little bit more if I have to. So I don't know exactly how the plan can be tweaked, but I would definitely want to keep more continuity in the medications and avoid step down, or even having some sort of option where you can have somebody to go to say, hey, let's, and make that known who we go to handle this case. Because I think right now, most people don't even know that that would be an option. They just go get the prescription filled, declined, call somebody up, they decline and whatever, and then you have to play that whatever game that is. So I hate that. I wouldn't mind paying even more than you proposed in increasing, a small amount, but still more if it helps keep that continuity in there. I think, because the stress that causes on people is huge, just going back and forth. And I think you know, there's other ways to spend your time and money as to having to chase down insurance claims and getting drugs approved and stuff like that. But I do think you made a point about, like, maybe you should at least have a discussion. I don't know if you would just call it a challenge, say like, hey, let's run this up the flagpole and see, you know, I don't know how that could be implemented, but that was something I was aware of too, that people, like, you know, get in their habits of, oh no, I can't change it, but
Right.
but I don't see the change. I see it going backwards. Usually they want you to go back to the oldest possible, cheapest drug and see if that will work, versus trying something new or something, you know, that might be less expensive. So those discussions about, hey, let's try something new that it's always like, well, that's the drug I took 10 years ago and it, you know, gave me whatever, right? So that's been my experience with step down, is you're not looking for something other, you're looking for old stuff that didn't work and nobody does, but it's just cheap, and that's the reason why they push you in that direction.
Sure. Yeah, I certainly hear your concern there. Jeff, do you want to speak a little more to that from the carrier standpoint and the things that they have in place to work through this type of situation?
Yeah, absolutely, and fair points. I think the overall goal of a step therapy or prior authorization process is to say, you know, when you look at the overall cost management of the plan, is there an opportunity to go out and find a drug that may be a generic or preferred brand, right, that may have a better cost overall back to the plan? So totally hear that and agree with it, right? As you think about the transition, you know, process, we will have, through United Healthcare as well as the team with Acrisure, if there are specific questions, to say, how do I walk through, do I confirm what my prescription is, you know, confirm, is the prescription covered, how is it covered, right? It's tier 2 today. What is it under UHC? We'll have those resources, both UHC offers those, you know, and then our team will be available to help as well. You know, in terms of some of those conversations around the physician, there's a certain point where you want the member to engage directly with their physician and kind of walk through the process between the physician and you know, what's covered under the prescription drug list. But I think, you know, in terms of what we can do to help support the conversation or look at the alternatives, you know, that may be there without getting into medical advice, we absolutely will provide that, as does UHC through a transition process. In terms of the cost component, right, being to your comment on be willing to pay a little bit more if it opens the formulary up, keeping in mind that United Healthcare, Cigna, even Anthem, Aetna, they all manage their formularies differently, and that's where you see that the disruption come into play slightly. So it's who they contract with, you know, this particular drug manufacturer versus that one, and how their contracts look. That's what's really driving the difference in the formularies primarily. Being you know, the way that the plans are, with United Healthcare, we can go back and say we'd be willing to take a $10 copay and make it $15 and help us understand what's the impact to the overall cost increase, but it's not going to change the formulary. We've gone and working with the staff and the team, right? We've maintained the broadest formulary and the broadest network to help minimize that disruption.
Another thing I want to mention is that there are a lot of biosimilar medications.
What's that?
There are a lot of biosimilar medications that will be hitting the market in 2026 through 2030 that are not yet available, because I'm sure you're aware some of these medications have patents and things on them that don't allow generics or biosimilars to be created until they've been in existence for X number of years. And so I do want to mention that there are several biosimilars that are becoming available that may not have been available in prior years. And you mentioned you don't want to have to go backwards, right, and start over in terms of going back to something that you may have tried or an employee may have tried that didn't work for them. I think we're going to see that there are more options available now, and it doesn't necessarily necessitate them having to go backwards, but to maybe take a side step, if you will, to find something that might not be name brand per se, but is the equivalent.
I think most of the questions is going to be relatively short, in the beginning, because like I said, I'm more concerned about current employees and the current medications. And so I would think in a relatively short window, 3 months or so, that we're going to be able to resolve these issues. And then ongoing, if somebody gets hired and they don't get to take the medicine that they did, and that's too bad, I guess. That's just, the way the world works. But I mean, so I would just want to make sure there's like a lot of interest, just things in place, mechanisms in place that during the first coaching, whatever it is, during the first 3 months that people can get, okay, well, what is this change going to look like? And after that, it's going to work itself out, because people are either going to change or not. They're not going to all of a sudden be in November and go like, well, I just got declined for my medication, because the formulary should have already kind of presented itself.
And we already have a list of the medications that could be impacted, and there is a small handful of them.
Yeah, so we can't get every medication because of the way that the plan designed and the information they'll share, but we looked at the top 25 drugs by spend and the top 25 drugs by volume. And keep me honest, that there were 5 drugs across those 50, right? There may be a little bit of overlap. There were 5 that were not covered between the 2 formularies, but they all but one had a alternative drug, right? So I may take Advair, and now I'm going to go get the Advair extended release. It's just a slight change in how that drug formulation and what they're covering. So fairly minimal disruption. But in terms of this member support, how do I reach out? How do I navigate this process? Between UHC and then our team provides that, today where there's questions, and we'll be able to help folks through that process.
And there's also an education component during open enrollment as well. We can make those lists of medications widely known, make sure employees have access to that information early on so they can begin those conversations as well.
And I've resisted looking at those lists because I didn't want it to be about me and like, oh, this plan sucks for me, and I'm going to go against it. I wanted to kind of just speak in much broader strokes of like all the employees. And like I said, I'm trying to be sensitive in the fact that I'm fortunate enough that if I have to spend $20 for my copays, then I can do that. But I realize that one might be more difficult for other people. So I'm not trying to, say I'll pay $20 for my copay and be able to keep all the stuff. But anyway, I'm just trying to, like I said, I'm just trying to think of how everybody might feel that might be in a similar situation of
Education and support resources. How are we educating, and then how are we supporting through that transition?
Well, it's definitely not all about you, because I hear it every time that we change plans. People get extremely frustrated when having to find other doctors and specialists and medications, and it can be a real challenge sometimes, and it is very frustrating for folks. Can you refresh my memory on employee wellness incentives? What do we do here to try to keep our employees healthy? We give there's a dollar amount to that, right?
Well, we have a few things in place. We have the Well Hub program, which allows employees to have a gym membership at no cost for them. We have embedded in that as well some various apps, access to different apps like Calm or different therapeutic apps and things of that sort, nutritionists, nutritional information. There's just a ton of resources for mental, physical, emotional, and nutritional support and assistance through that in and of itself. Outside of the WellHub app, we do have the annual wellness event that we do here where we encourage everyone to get their biometric screenings, any vaccinations they may be behind on, we bring that to them. We also offer those wellness credits to help incentivize them to go to their physician, make sure they're having those conversations with their doctor to try and get ahead of things. And then we give them a financial incentive tied to that to lower their monthly premiums. And we have a dedicated payroll and benefits specialist as of this year who is starting to drive more wellness-related activities and initiatives throughout the organization. So one of the things that we do and will continue to do as part of that role for our payroll and benefits specialist is to really team with Acrisure and our carriers to look at what types of medications might be high volume and what conditions are tied to those and how can we do things here to help educate and also help improve the health of individuals around certain categories of illnesses in the workplace that we're seeing.
I feel like I know the answer to this already, but companies cannot require physicals or
No.
preventative health care or anything as part of being enrolled in the plan.
It's
Some of us
voluntary.
just don't take care of us. I drink Coke for breakfast every morning. I mean, some of us don't take care of ourselves, so.
Slowly make changes.
If I may add on this topic too, I know we've got Nicole on board this year and she's looking at all sorts of programs, but in the past we've tried a lot of different wellness programming and variations of it. The biggest challenge that we have is our size. And if our employees are not electing to participate in some of those programs, we can't bring them back year over year. We had the ability to bring in like dental cleanings and some other things, and we did it a couple of times, but we just didn't have the volume. And so it's really like kind of this challenge to figure out what the right programming is.
Right.
We did bring in this past year, unrelated to physical health, but financial health. That was something that people absolutely loved. And so we're still kind of trying to figure out what that really good incentive is to get folks to focus on their physical health.
So is it legal or illegal for us to have a financial incentive? I mean, is that something, I would say, looking at the numbers we're looking at, it would be well worth it to say if you complete all of this preventative, you go get your physical, you come in and you do this, whatever, you get a $500 bonus or something like that. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know what we can do, but it seems like, if we could add a little bit more to the preventative side, then maybe we wouldn't be at these crossroads every year.
Right. And, that's one of the things when I talk about looking at that next 3 to 5 years, we've really got to get a handle on some of these types of things. What are those incentives going to look like? We can't make anyone go take a physical. We can't make them certainly give us their health information, but we can incentivize them financially, for example, by taking cost off their healthcare premiums for going and completing certain tasks. And then it's a simple document that they take to their doctor that their doctor just signs and says, yes, I saw this patient today. And that's really all we need to kind of trigger that on our end from an administrative standpoint to process that financial incentive toward the premium discount.
I'm not going to say incentive because I think in my case, I'm not asking for an incentive, but I'm certainly eligible for A, B, C, and D, Medicaid, Medicare, I'm sorry. However, I've stayed with the city because that's what I've used for a long time, and I really am having so much trouble even navigating.
Right.
And paying for it.
Well, unfortunately, we can't financially incentivize people to move to Medicare. We can't ask them to or even make them, but we can educate about Medicare. I think the issue that we have is our benefits are so rich, people choose our benefits over Medicare. And we can't make them take
The other issue that I have, because of my age, and this is not, I've been reading about this is going on. I've turned it off and on 25 times. Do we have an ombudsman for medical guidance? Okay, because my husband and I have tried to find a GP. We have been ignored by some of the doctors that we've gone to. We have been misguided by some of the doctors that we've gone to, and we have been suffering greatly, not me so much as my husband, in finding solutions to the problems that people of our age have. And it has been a debilitating and exhausting process in the meantime while my husband's health gets worse. And it puts us in a place of, having these pre-existing conditions that are going to come back and bite us in our old age, well, while we are in our old age. So is there help for me?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Jesus.
I know they've been wanting to
Well,
speak.
no, I
over
think,
here.
so on the reward side, I want to go back to the wellness for a moment. We've talked about what the city does. There's also built into the UHC plan. Cigna has some similar, right? But there's incentives that if you engage from tie a health tracker to your My UHC app, right? There's, as an individual, ways that you can connect and engage with UHC and get some wellness dollars back that way.
Even just getting your physical, if you download the UHC app, you put in there that you got your physical, you'll get, let's say, $100. If you put in that you, like he said, connected your Fit app, then you get money. And you could earn up to, the one that they're offering you right now is earning up to $300. So that would be a very good incentive that not only is the city paying and getting wellness for the employees, but they could also get money that they could use for whatever they like.
And that money would be in addition to any wellness premium credit that they would receive from the city.
In terms of the questions, so I think Medicare education came up, and that is something that we can work with the team to bring a resource, right? We can't ask you to move, right? But bring a resource to help you navigate that process through our team. And I will tell you, you don't want me doing it, but we have specialists that do Medicare, right? And to guide you through that process. And then finally, just that one-on-one support. How do I find a physician? How do I, Steph really is the face of that for our team, for the city of Chamblee in particular, and then liaisoning with the carrier, whether that's Cigna, UHC, or whoever it may be, to help you work through that process. And then some other thoughts that we'll share with the team to come back in future, discussions on other ways to really focus on that quality side.
I think that I have always opted to have no previous, what's it called? I can go to whoever I want to go to. I don't have to have a pre-authorization. I think that's been a huge mistake on my part because every time I go to a specialist, they go, well, what are you here for? What'd your doctor send you here for? And I'll tell them, but that doesn't make any difference. I'm not getting, there's no collaboration between. So on my part, I understand now that that was a big mistake. But that's the whole thing that I'm looking for because insurance has changed dramatically in the years that I've been on this planet. And the changes are not being explained. You can't go on the news and hear. I can't even ask AARP what in the heck is going on here. So I need to know how to navigate it. And unfortunately, what's happening with me is I'm making the mistakes and then I'm figuring out, well, I should have done this. In the meantime, spinning my wheels, not getting better, not getting guidance, and reading horror stories that are frightening. So for me, I could make great use of some one-on-one counseling and guidance. Absolutely.
Depending on if someone's needing assistance, just finding a provider, it sounds like what you're discussing is a little more in depth than that. But there are resources that HR is able to provide to assist with that. If the conversations go a little deeper and some additional resources are needed and we need to kind of pull out the big guns, so to speak, we start involving Stephanie, who kind of goes to bat for us and goes to bat for our staff with the carrier, and will sort of be that, I was going to say bad cop, for the carrier and advocate for the employee. So there are some different things that we can do and have one-on-one conversations. I'd be more than glad to talk to you through some things as well. And then we certainly have our resources through Acrisure and then also the carriers as well to try and
And knowing
resolve some of
that those resources exist and that who to contact when you want to use those resources, because I think
Right.
that's the gap we have right now. Like you're telling me, everything you're saying is like news to me, and it shouldn't be news to me. Maybe that's my fault, I don't know, but it just, I didn't know I could have called Jennifer Burke if I had a problem, or at least she could have point me, and I call you all the time, I know. But anyway, I could, point me in the right direction.
So you have done a fantastic job of the wellness program, but what about the geriatric program?
Hear you. So more education. I'm hearing a request for more education. And honestly, we started some of that in the last year. One of the financial workshops that was a great hit from a financial wellness standpoint was really kind of going through what do you need to do to prepare for retirement, for example, because that's an entirely different topic that's equally as complex. And so we are trying to bring more education to staff, and that's one of the reasons that we move forward in bringing Nicole on board in that payroll and benefits specialist role, so we can have more dedicated staff to those types of education components and wellness enrichments.
So I didn't have any more questions, but y'all's conversation made me think of something. But at GMA, one of the classes I took, they did talk about some of the cities were allowing the employees to opt out of insurance, and then I guess somehow they were able to get some sort of compensation because now the city's not spending money on them. So that was, because they always talk about, employee that, say, makes $100,000 really cost us $150,000 to pay for all their benefits and all that stuff. And so some cities have recognized that and said, well, we'll give them a bump if they're not in our plan. Is that, you're saying that's illegal, or is that just something, if I got some details wrong?
It's all in how you structure it and communicate it. You can't go to someone and say, if you take Medicare, we're gonna give you 10 grand over here. We can't do that. But there are some options that we have that we could explore to say, hey, if your spouse has benefits and you take benefits through your spouse's plan instead of ours, we could tie a financial incentive to that, for example.
Yeah, and I would be more interested in that. They did talk about, like, people are young and they're dumb, so they just say, well, I don't need any health insurance and I'll just whatever. I'm not in really favor of allowing necessarily anybody going that route.
Right.
But if they have Medicare or spousal insurance or something like that they could say, then there could be a component. But that's another topic for another day. I don't think that's really part of this discussion, but since it came up.
It's not, but it is, because again, that 3-year plan, we need to be looking at all of these kinds of things.
Right.
So, and that education component as well. And I don't think we have to wait on the education component.
But isn't there economy in numbers as well? I mean, if you're a small city and you don't have X amount of employees, you're not going to get the best price, whereas if you're a large city, the cost of your insurance is spread out, if you will, over a whole lot more people, and who are likely to have less claims, et cetera, et cetera. So some of it's just economy of numbers.
The law of large numbers definitely plays in, for sure, but you're not wrong.
I got it.
Any other questions?
Just one comment. A little while back when we got the first numbers, they were terrifying.
Yes.
I want to thank you guys for your hard work to put together something that's digestible. Thank you.
Not just digestible, but affordable for the
Yes.
city.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right, that takes us down to amendment to city financial policies.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Julie Pirro, Finance Director. Over the past year, the city received state funding through the Improving Neighborhood Outcomes Grant. And as part of the closeout grant process, the Office of Planning and Budget, or OMB, conducted a compliance review. Their review identified a few findings related to how we handle our procurement. Tonight's presentation is a proposal to amend our financial policies and to address those findings and ensure full compliance going forward. Currently, our procurement policy requires competition, that is soliciting vendors, quotes or bids, whenever a single purchase exceeds $25,000. This policy has served us well for our general city purchases. However, the state's compliance review revealed that this $25,000 limit doesn't align with certain state and federal guidelines, especially when dealing with grant-funded projects. So here's where the compliance gap exists. Under the Georgia state law and federal uniform guidance, a competition is required for purchases over $10,000. So our policy is higher. Our policy has a higher threshold of $25,000, which means we're technically out of compliance when using state and federal grant funding. This doesn't affect our local purchasing authority, but it does create a risk when using grant money. And if we don't adjust, we could jeopardize our eligibility for grant funding in the future. To close the gap, we are proposing a simple and targeted policy amendment. This will require the competitive quotes for purchases over $10,000 when the funding source is for state and federal. This ensures our practices align with both federal regulations and state procurement law. Importantly, this amendment will only affect grant-funded projects, and our local purchasing policy will remain intact. With this update, we will maintain compliance, transparency, and eligibility for future funding. And in summary, Finance is recommending that Mayor and Council approve the revision to the city financial policies as discussed. And once approved, the staff will update the internal procedures and communicate changes to all departments. I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Julie, any questions from council?
How, I do have a question. How expensive is it for the city to require competitive quotes? I mean, because we have to put out the notice and blah, 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 and explore these quotes for $10,000. I'm sorry, I'm going to say a mere $10,000 because that's not that much money in today's financial game. So what does it cost the city?
So I'll pop in on this and just iterate that this is for state and federal grants. So we don't have a ton of them. And so to your point, it would be very cumbersome to do this with every single purchase that we have. Because as you may know, most of our purchases when we go out and solicit services are well over $25,000 for a single purchase. This is a formalization of what is already technically required if you follow 2 CFR 200, which is the federal guidelines for grants and federal funding. I don't anticipate that it's going to cost us a ton of additional money just because we don't have a lot of those grants as they currently stand. If we were a much larger organization and had a lot of federal funds flowing through the city, it would probably be a little bit of a burden. But this is more than anything else just a formalization of our current practices.
Okay, thanks.
All right, anything else? Thank you, Julie. Q3 2025 budget amendment. Daria.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Daria Kriskus. I'm the Budget and Strategy Manager. I'll keep this one quick. I know we've had some long items tonight, but this is a budget amendment. It's just, we do this quarterly, as you know. And here on the screen, you see the funds that are affected by this, but I think the next slide will do a better job of describing what these changes are. I know it's a little hard to read, but I'll go through it. So the first one is a change in the general fund, and what's going on with this, there's about $8,000 that these were costs. As you know, we did some updates to Village Park this year through a grant from the state. And some of the costs related to that ended up being not reimbursable through the grant, and it was determined that it could be absorbed from the city manager's budget. So that first change is just shifting what's necessary to make that happen. The second thing on there is with the American Rescue Plan Fund, the state fund. So we've talked about this a couple times throughout the year, but through the process of the audit, we discovered that there was a preference to have a separate fund for federal and state ARPA because we had both, and previously it had been bundled together. So this is more of just some of the legwork needed to continue to clear that up. So that $8,000 in revenue that's being transferred from the above line, that's coming in, and then I'm also recognizing the grant there that we have for Village Park. But again, I mean, that project, as you know, is basically complete. So the next item is the 2025 General Obligation Bond Fund. As you know, the sale of that was, I believe, September 4th, so we just are at a point where we can recognize the funds that we received from the sale of that, which was a $30 million bond, and you'll recall that we had 81% voter approval. This is a really exciting, just one small administrative step on this very exciting journey that we're on with that. And then finally, the Dresden Plaster SSD Fund. So at the end of last year, there was, you all approved the creation of the Special Services District in the Dresden Plaster area. And so this is establishing a budget. So one of the important things that's coming up soon is, because we're opening Dresden, we're going to need a little more staff to help make sure it stays beautiful and looks as gorgeous as it does the day it opens. And so the Parks Department has been working on hiring a grounds person for that park, and it's going to be paid out of this fund. So we wanted to go ahead and establish a budget so we can get that ball rolling. And that's the end of it. Any questions?
Any questions?
Wasn't that bond, I thought, there was something about 31 million. There was like another 1 million or something?
There was a little bit there. Maybe Kristen can help me.
Yeah, we probably need to add that little bit to make sure it's accounted for. I think this was done without realizing that premium that was added.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorian. All right, we have the Dresden Trail Grant application.
Thank you, Mayor. This is actually me. The Georgia Department of Transportation is seeking applications for the Transportation Alternatives Grant. This is a federally funded grant that will flow through GDOT to provide funding for projects that support transportation alternatives. We are in the process right now of designing phase 1 of the Dresden Trail project, which will run from Shallowford Road to Dresden Park along Dresden Drive. That is currently estimated to be just under $1 million. We would like to pursue this grant with GDOT to fund that project. The requirement is, there's no maximum ask amount, but we're going to seek $1 million with a 20% match. So the city would provide that match. And in order to move forward with that application, we need you guys to approve the application because there is a match requirement. So the grant application is due October 31st.
Fully support that. Questions from council? Anything? Thank you.
More trails.
More trails.
Happy trails.
This is the South Chamblee Woodacres Park Task Order.
Yes, speaking of our park bond, the South Chamblee / Woodacres Park was master planned in 2024 by Kimley Horn. It is ready to go for design and construction. This is one of the first projects out of that park bond that we have talked about moving forward with. So we are seeking approval from you all on Tuesday to allow me to sign a task order with Kimley Horn to move forward with the design and engineering of that park.
Good deal. Questions from council? We have the North Metro SWAT MOU.
Thank you. And Chief Dieppe is not here this evening because he is at the Chiefs Association conference in Denver. So this is just really briefly, this is an update to the North Metro SWAT Memorandum of Understanding. At the beginning of next year, Johns Creek and Sandy Springs, who have been our partners in the North Metro SWAT for several years, will be rolling off of that program. There's a little bit of a challenge with the jurisdictional boundaries between Fulton County and DeKalb County. So earlier this year, a decision was made to delineate the North Metro SWAT as a DeKalb focused SWAT team. So they will be rolling off, and the purpose of this MOU is actually to add the city of Doraville as a partner in that program. So this would just formalize across all cities involved in North Metro SWAT the addition of the city of Doraville.
Thank you. Questions from council? All right.
Doraville has tanks, right?
They did.
They have dogs, so.
Dogs and tanks.
Dogs and tanks. All right, we have the renewal of the speed detection permit.
So this is actually, it says renewal of speed detection permit is actually a request to terminate the contract. So the city entered into an agreement with Red Speed in, I believe, the end of 2019, after the state legislature allowed the addition of Red Speed cameras in, or I'm sorry, yes, Red Speed cameras in school zones. The current only camera that we have is in the St. Pius school zone. It has very effectively done its job over the years. There's some details in your packet. I don't have them on the slide, but to show how many citations we were issuing per month through that program and how it has really managed behavior. I think we have only issued 8 citations in the month of August. So it really is, because it's a cost share between the city and Red Speed. It's a 70-30% share, so we still pay about 30% to Red Speed of the revenue that we receive, and we're still adjudicating those citations. It's kind of becoming a cost burden overall. So it's not really, at this point in time, it is becoming more of an administrative burden than it is a solution provider to the city. And St. Pius is in agreement of that as well. They are fine with the removal of the device. And so the request is that we move forward with the termination of that contract and give the 30-day notices as required in the contract.
Questions from council?
I just remember that implementation, well, it was not the smoothest of implementation of programs, and we got lots of emails on that. I wonder if we'll get any emails when they go down.
Well, and I will add
You certainly
too-
got them when they went up.
Yeah, I will add too that there's highly anticipated changes to state law on this as well that will make it even less of a, it would reduce the advantages and make the disadvantages a little bit more significant. We have the NRU, and that team has been incredibly effective at traffic enforcement, and so we will continue with traffic enforcement by the more traditional way through our police department.
Very good. On-call stormwater services contract.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Amanda Midori-Hallower, Stormwater Manager. I am standing in tonight for Todd Hill, Public Works Director, to present a couple of proposed services agreements for the Stormwater Division. The first item, staff is recommending executing a on-call stormwater services contract with Integrated Science and Engineering for miscellaneous stormwater consulting and engineering services. ISE has been providing the city with services in support of compliance with our NPDES Phase 1 MS4 permit for many years. We discovered recently that the city actually does not have an active contract with ISE that they have been, under which these services have been solicited, so we want to get a contract in place to move forward with them. ISE is highly qualified. They have a lot of experience with EPD, former staff from EPD, and have helped us. For instance, this past year, they supported the development of our stormwater master plan that we submitted to EPD, had minor comments from EPD on that. This would be a proposed one-year contract, not to exceed $50,000 in fees under task orders under that contract in a one-year period with up to 3 years of renewal. Questions?
Good. Questions from council?
If I understood it, I'd ask lots of questions, but I don't understand. So I just have to trust your
expertise.
Well,
Brad,
do
you
you
use a
understand,
lot
Paul?
of
Maybe you can explain
acronyms.
it to me after the meeting?
I will very quickly just add on this that this is a value added for us because we don't have the staffing levels to do all this additional work.
True, although we are working on building the capacity to take a lot of that on in-house, I will say, one of my
Here, John, I thought you did hydrology and stormwater capacity analysis in your free time.
I do, but
So
I'm behind.
We're working on building in-house capacity.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my goals.
and
But
we're-
right now, we do need this support to make sure we're complying with our permit.
And we're trying to figure out whether there's a cost savings in outsourcing it or bringing it in-house, because if we bring it in-house, then we have insurance costs and stuff like that.
I think what Amanda is referring to is training our existing staff.
Yeah, training
to be
our
able do
staff
some
to
of
be
this
able to
stuff.
perform a lot of the requirements of our permit. But yes.
Thank you, Amanda.
Okay, so I have the next one as well. This is recommending executing another standalone contract with ISE to conduct a survey, condition assessment, and retrofit analysis for a failed stormwater detention pond. The Stormwater Division has been working diligently, it's kind of investigative work, to piece together a full inventory of all the stormwater detention ponds that we have in the city, so that we can enforce the inspection and maintenance requirements under city code. A lot of these were inherited from DeKalb County through various annexations. And, in digging these up, many of them, going back to the original plats and covenants, are private maintenance responsibilities, HOAs, et cetera. But this particular pond, it's in the Camden Way cul-de-sac, single-family subdivision off Chambly-Dunwoody. It's in the back of a lot, and at some point, DeKalb County assumed responsibility, maintenance responsibility for that pond. We inherited that when we annexed that area. And when we discovered it, as you might imagine, due to years of neglect and lack of maintenance, it's just completely failed. And it is contributing to some of the flooding issues that the Longview neighborhood downstream has been experiencing, which we certainly hear a lot of complaints about. So we want to, we don't have any documentation, design documents, et cetera, for the pond, so we need to get a survey and figure out the current condition and how it was designed and how we can then retrofit it to get it back to a functioning condition. And this would be a not to exceed, I think it's 29,000 plus contract. Questions? 24,000.
910.
Yes, exactly.
So I do have some questions for you. We have upcoming projects that require detention, stormwater, some sort of stormwater mitigation. I know that the best practices over time have changed from when these facilities that you're talking about were first built and what we require these days. There is some confusion, I think, in the efficacy of some of the stormwater detention ponds as opposed to below ground detention. And I'm wondering if that is something, I don't necessarily think that I would like you to speak to that now, but an overview of what works and actually doesn't work for our planning and development and code, UDO, would be highly beneficial, because there's a lot of misunderstanding, I think, up here, but as well among our citizens about detention ponds versus underground storage, water storage, and subsequent discharging. And so I hope that that is something that you're also going to address, and that maybe you can advise us on some upcoming projects that we're about to okay or not.
Sure, and yes, the requirements have changed a lot over the years. We've updated the ordinance. So a lot, you do see a lot more underground detention these days, because the above ground would just take up a lot of real estate for one reason. But yes, we're interested in looking at the stormwater ordinance more and even making more updates and things like that. So.
I think that when these projects come before us, we have downstream, if you will, downhill residents that come in, and they're very worried about, is this going to cause mosquitoes? Is this going to overflow? Where does the water go? Is it all kinds of problems that we can't answer?
Yes.
And really, even our development department is not as well schooled as we would hope to answer the same questions, and to answer them for us as well, but we need to answer them for our constituents. They need reassurance. So I hope that we can help with that.
Would be happy to.
Great.
Thank you, Amanda. All right. We seem to be making a lot of discoveries lately, and they're all costing us money. Yeah, right. Discover a pot of money somewhere. All right, this takes us back down to our public hearing items, and first up is New Peachtree Road and VJ Drive. Were there any questions from council on this project?
Did we skip stormwater detention?
Nope.
process?
We just did it.
I thought we just did stormwater on-call services.
Nope.
She combined the two presentations, Leslie.
Any questions on Peachtree Road and VJ Drive for the applicant or for staff?
I would like to ask Mr. Matt Adams. So I know we approved this project a few years ago and it expired like they do. The zoning stayed in place, so the property is kind of in limbo, and that they can't really be what they are, and they really need to be something new because that's what the zoning indicates. But I want to know what the same. Like obviously they had some conditions, variances they asked, what year, I don't know what year that was, but 4 years ago, 5 years ago, they asked for certain variances, and I want to know if is those the same? Are we comparing apples to apples 2019 to today? Does that make sense? I kind of stumbled through that really badly.
Absolutely. So I completely understood. With the exception of, I believe, 2 of the variances that were approved, the current proposal is substantially similar. I can't speak for the analysis that went into that original design in staff's recommendation. I do know that the design has changed somewhat since then, and staff's recommendation is fully vetted based on the existing proposal.
Oh, okay. I was under the impression it was the exact same, but it has changed.
I believe it has. The applicant may be able to answer that better than I. I've had 3 weeks with this.
Sure. Step up whoever would be best suited to answer that question.
So the application has changed in terms of we are doing 2 less of the variances that were previously required. We are not requesting a variance to take the retaining wall above 12 feet. So that's no longer a variance compared to in 2022. And then the other one is variance removed for supplemental zone. We will be installing a 10-foot supplemental zone on New Peachtree Road per the code. So we actually took the waivers and variances and reduced them.
Okay.
But all of the others stayed the same. So essentially it is apples to apples. We just changed the retaining walls and expanded the supplemental zone on New Peachtree.
Which are good things, usually.
Yes.
Okay.
I would hope. And yeah, that's the only.
So we did receive an email where they talked about, and I didn't really fully understand it because I am not an expert on stormwater, but they mentioned something about that there was the new stormwater system that would be installed was not improving it, it was keeping it the same, and they had reported that there had been failures in the stormwater system that's currently there. Has that been addressed, or do you? And I just got that email today, so I didn't really have a chance to dig into it. And I think I asked Matt the same question. I don't know if he forwarded it on to you, but.
Yeah, so I'm Daniel Kerr. I'm with Kimley Horn, civil engineer on the project. And we did receive that email I believe the request was to basically increase the detention above and beyond what the city requires, which obviously is not per the code. And I think there was some mention of some downstream issues. I don't know that it was necessarily related to this site particularly, but we, fully intend to obviously follow the entire intent of the code as it relates to the stormwater.
The way it read to me, which again, I'm not challenging you on this, but it read that you kind of had like a grandfathering of the existing stormwater being able to be maintained. There was no current updating of the code. Is that not fair, or is that a mischaracterization on?
So the way the code reads is essentially the flows off-site today as it's designed today, not necessarily as it operates today, because as we talked about before, the pond may not be maintained properly, and so there may be more water being let out. But the way that it's designed and constructed today has to be met in the future conditions. So we cannot increase from what is there today.
You cannot increase capacity?
We cannot increase the flow off-site.
Yeah, that makes
from what is
sense.
there today.
But you could increase retention capacity, if I'm saying that part right.
In theory, we could, and actually, we are planning to increase the capacity of the detention. So we will be improving it actually over what is there today.
That's what I wanted to know. I got through it. Is anybody else?
Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir. That takes us down to Ashton Woods. This is Pruitt. Questions from council, staff, or?
So I was on city council when the previous version of the project for the parking lot in the entry road was approved. And that was pre-pandemic, if my memory serves me right. And operationally, I'm sure Pruitt functioned very differently. And it was a very significant traffic. Baxter, you probably come up, I guess. I don't, if you want to point to somebody else, that's fine. I have since, because I have that memory of how it was pre-pandemic, and it was a nightmare, and I definitely thought it needed to be addressed. But since then, and part of it because of the pandemic being the pandemic and nobody was there, or less people were there, and several visits that I've made, I have not seen the replication of that parking nightmare back. And then I would also want to question this expansion of the property, the interior of the building, the more whatever, that would exacerbate any perceived parking problem that may be claimed or maybe has gone away. I don't know, but so I don't know that it seems like you're taking, in some ways, again, just dealing with the parking, you're taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back or whatever. It's like you're not improving the parking, you're actually just increasing the parking so you can increase the footprint. And originally, that's what I was interested in when I approved the project, was that we were going to fix the parking problem, not fix it, then
Make it worse again.
make it worse again. So, and then outside of that, I have a lot of issues with the expansion of the building and how it's done and the retaining walls and all that. It just seems very intrusive. The parking, I'd almost wish that they were 2 separate things, because I'm personally not that interested in the building expansion and how that would work. I'm more interested in improving the parking, the stormwater, and there was some mention by you at this meeting that talked about this was a 1960s era parking lot, and that's just how they were built, and that's the way water sheets across. But there's also a very recent puncturing of the curb that lets the water out of the parking lot because it was creating a pond when it rained, and that discharge from that particular, which was allowing it. So I don't know that has anything to do with historical, the way the water went. I think it's a very focused direction of the water is sent through the property on and then causing damage into the Keswick Forest that needs to be addressed. So it seems like there's like 3 or 4 different concerns lumped into one, and anyway, so I'm having a lot of trouble uncoupling all the different issues. Like, I for sure want to fix that, what I think might be a code violation of that hole being punched into the curb and draining in there, that may or may not have anything to do with this project, but if there's other benefits to doing this project in the parking lot, I don't know. I'm just not necessarily convinced that that the problem that I saw pre-pandemic still exists as far as the parking. You know, maybe I'm not going at the right time. I don't know, but I just haven't really seen it to be that. I don't know. Did I ask a question in any of that?
How did,
I can try to tackle that.
how did we couple these two together? How did we go from parking to addition? How did this come to be?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, the reason is that ultimately the building expansion is related to the same buffer request, so we brought them forward together. They are 2 separate avenues and 2 separate paths. We debated which direction to go, is whether we bring them together, we wait on the building expansion, but at this time we made the choice to bring them forward at one time. I can try to answer some of those other questions I think I've got a sense of what you're asking, and I've got some responses.
Go ahead.
Go for it. Go for it.
I'm supposed to be asking you a question, and you're supposed to be answering. So I think I got to a question at some point. If not, Brian, help me with that.
Well, I think starting to where you originally started with, are we proposing a building expansion that is going to loop back around to make the parking situation worse again when we're trying to make it better because of a traffic issue that we have now, currently? And I think that still exists. John Hinger can come up and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the parking is still needed for the amount of patients and employees that are there today. One thing I want to distinguish, though, about the building expansion that we're proposing, so it will be 9 additional private rooms, but what that means, that's not bringing in any additional patients. What that is creating private rooms from semi-private or joint rooms. So it's not increasing our number of patients that we'll have, it's just providing an additional service. So it's not increasing the demand on the parking, I think, in the way that it totally makes sense that it would seem like it would because of the building addition that we're doing. The other elements of the addition are additional therapy features or features of the property like a sunroom or additional physical therapy space. So again, not increasing the number of patients that would be seen. On the stormwater issues, and I believe what some of the concern about flow damage and erosion that's being caused on the property, you're exactly right, and I truly appreciate you, Councilmember Mesa, for directing our attention to the puncture in the curb issue that you've raised. We are actively working on an interim solution and need to repair the damage that was caused by that direct flow out of a hole in a curb that someone on an on-site management team punctured at some time in the past. So it's not something that the corporate or corporate management team was aware of, but something that was done by an on-site person and something that we know that we need to fix and repair some of that erosion damage. But in addition to that acute issue of that hole in the curb, there is a greater, more broad issue of the stormwater flow rolling across the parking lot and causing erosion further down closer to the creek. And that's an issue that we think and truly believe would be solved by the pervious paver design that we're proposing on the new parking lot design. So we think we can solve, and we need to solve the acute issue that you pointed out, but also can address the broader issue of erosion occurring in the park there. I think those are maybe the multiple components.
And I will say that I noticed that the parking issue is exacerbated by the patients who bring in like private services, whether it's their own nurse or whatever, because they don't know the rules, they don't know where they're supposed to park, they just park first place they park in the road. And I think, you know, that even though you claim that they're separate rooms, I'm sure that these seem like fancier rooms, which means they probably have the ability to hire private nurses to come in more, so it may actually increase the parking demand in those areas. So and I know that's kind of tough, but that's the situation, it's reality. I don't think your day-to-day employees that are there don't cause the issues. It's the people who are coming there, you know, wants to help somebody with their bad knee, and then some therapist or individual private that they're bringing in, or the insurance is in it. But anyway, once I get my head around that, then we can start talking about tree preservation and stuff like that. But I still got a lot of other thoughts banging around in my head, and it's like I said, I approved this project a few years ago. I voted to do it, so I'm not trying to run away from that, but this has greatly increased since then. So that's I believe Brian voted for it, and I believe Leslie voted for it at the time. So there was something that was recognized at that time that needed to be done. But again, you've conflated or confused the issue by adding all this other stuff to it. So
I actually talked about gabion walls and things like that as well, step-down retaining walls and gabion walls, which, by the way, are more supportive of vegetation than solid concrete or whatever. We talked about several solutions. Not only that, but we've also talked about a way to keep forgetting about this. I thought I had a loud mouth. We talked about also figuring out a way that people that utilize the park, it is a park, natural area, can get up to Ashton Woods, whatever the name of that street is that goes back in there. I think all of those things were kind of rejected because it's just too hard and expensive to do them. But the problem really, in my opinion, is that Pruitt has outgrown that location. And because of the topography and things like that, trying to expand in an area that you've outgrown, considering the topography, is very hard, and it's very hard on the people that live around there. And so I think that you probably are going to be required, or asked rather, to do more than just the bare minimum to make yourself fit in there better. And it may come to better retaining walls, better groundwater storage. And I don't think with the velocity of the rain that comes down these days that pervious pavers are going to be the solution, because they don't absorb the water that fast. So you're going to have a runoff problem no matter what, and you have a huge drop-off there, and that's going to be very hard to deal with. And I think it's going to take something more than just preserving a buffer and expanding your parking lot and pervious pavers. So I think that's something that I might want to ask you to do more exploration of, and not just choose the least expensive way out.
Noted. I said duly noted.
Duly noted. I didn't know if there was a question to respond to.
There's no question. Really, my observations and things that I know you guys have thought of, and I know that our code has requirements that you're not going beyond, but you may be required to go beyond, because that is a very sensitive site, very sensitive. And we have a great history with Pruitt and that site. And by great, I don't necessarily mean friendly.
Long history.
Long history. So just, that site has been for the enjoyment. It's a park. It is a park, and it has been assaulted by the county, by the stormwater, by Pruitt, and it is deeply cherished by the neighbors and by our city. And it's being chipped away at little by little. And that's why our citizens are asking for more than just, yeah, we need to go into the buffer because we need to. It needs to be preserved. We can't let it deteriorate by making a bad decision over what we allow you to do. We just can't.
So I just want to follow up, make sure I understood what you're saying. We're adding 9 more units. We're making them single units, and so 9 units that are currently doubles are going to become singles. So we're going to end up with 18 singles.
9 singles.
You already have 9 that are doubles. So I'm saying you're moving 2 people into 1, right? So instead of 9 doubles and 9 singles, you're going to have 18 singles.
Or 4 doubles into 9 singles.
You're converting rooms, these aren't new rooms? I thought they were new.
No, but I'm just saying in terms of the number of, there's some conversion going on, but we're adding space for the new single rooms.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm just trying to, because you said it's not going to increase any more volume, so the parking spaces will be what they will be, so you're not increasing the number of residents, you're just spreading them out.
Correct.
So that's what you're saying, right?
Correct. But adding new square footage for those rooms.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get into your operations, I'm just trying to follow what you said.
No, I'm trying to make
There's-
sure I'm
there's-
understanding.
There's not going to be any more people coming, I mean, I'm assuming you're at capacity, right? You're 100%. I can't imagine a skilled nursing facility at this day and age not being 100%. So you're full, so you're adding 9 more units, but you're taking from that current residents that are already there to move into those and making those doubles into singles. So there's no more foot traffic, no more traffic coming in. That's right.
That's correct.
Okay. That's all. Any other questions from council? No? Any other comments from council? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, that takes us down to Century Parkway. Questions from council? Is this,
I think with his presentation and the comparing of the other things, he answered all the questions that I may have been able to come up with, because it is hard to know the difference between 420, 421, 450, or whatever. It's just, but seeing that, it definitely was helpful for the part of that decision-making, for me anyway.
My question is,
can you come on up?
I can't figure out which side of the building you're actually putting it on. You've got one sign that's on the building that actually faces 85, parallel to 85. Am I right? Or is it just around the corner?
On the existing building,
On
the
the
existing
existing
South
building.
College, they've got 2 signs.
Okay.
They've got a sign on the side that faces directly towards I-85.
Right.
And then one that faces, it's like almost parallel with I-85.
Is the college moving?
They're expanding.
So this is an additional sign?
Yeah,
This is
they're
a s-
looking, they're going to get some, they've got some space here in this building that
Okay,
they're.
so the other sign's not going away, this just is
That's
another
right.
sign?
It's not going away, but we wanted to make sure that students and everybody who's traveling through the city of Chamblee is aware of who South College is and where they're at.
Okay.
And so what we're looking at here, I hope this helps. If you're traveling north on I-85.
Correct.
This is the side of the building that you would see.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, but you showed us a picture of the sun in your eyes when you're traveling south.
That's right. That's if you're traveling south, and I showed you that image to show you what the sign on the other side of the building looks like today.
Can you show me
And,
that again then? The picture of the glass?
I have this leftover one that I can share
Oh,
with
right,
you.
never mind, you passed it out.
I didn't understand it.
I showed that to you because it's nearly impossible to see that.
So, is there a sign here or not?
There is.
Okay, because I can't see it in this picture.
That's
his
my
point.
problem.
That's the point.
Thank you.
Well, you
Okay.
just made his case for him.
Okay, okay, well, there you go, right. I don't have my sunglasses on, I can't see it in my, there, thank you, thank you. I have been diagnosed with some eye issues. Self-diagnosed. Self-diagnosed.
All
Okay,
right.
thank you. That's all I wanted.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
my question is, staff contends there's no hardship. You contend there's a hardship.
Absolutely.
What is that hardship? In the scope of our code, what's that hardship?
Absolutely. So this building, staff contended in their report that this is one of the tallest buildings in the city. However, the code doesn't allow for an increase above 200 square foot signs, even if you move up past some of the taller buildings in the city. So we're capped at 200, whether we're at 5 stories, 10 stories, 15 stories, whatever you have. As you get further up into the air, that sign becomes less and less visible. And when it comes to signage, if you can't see it, you might as well not have it.
So people make their college decisions based off signage?
Well, I think having that representation and feeling proud about where you're going could play into your choice when you go to school.
Fair.
Everyone is aware of what that arch means when they see it. Everyone recognizes that that's the University of Georgia. What that gold and silver is when they see that. I think signage is
I
definitely
don't
important.
recognize any of that.
Your identity.
As an Alabama fan.
I tried my best. I didn't know.
Oh,
where to
him,
land
not
on
me.
it.
I said nothing. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you for clearing that
Thank
up.
you.
All right, and that takes us down to Pierce Drive. Any questions from the applicant on this item?
Yeah, I have sorry.
I was going to apologize to the applicant for interrupting you the first time about my confusion.
Yeah, I'm still confused. So are you deferring or not? Because you said something about a fence. So what's the plan?
Yeah, because that was my question as well, because the fence is
If
completely
I-
different.
So procedurally, I think he should have had his public hearing and do all that, answer the questions, and then he would then defer after the meeting before we vote, if he, that's what,
If I may, I'd like to.
since he's already here.
Actually have Matt Adams clarify this.
Okay.
Thank you. So the alternate design that has been proposed by the applicant would require a change in scope of the variance in total. It will reduce the need for the existing variance, but introduce the need for another one. Because the roadway right next to this is technically considered an alleyway, which the UDO treats as a street, this is a street side yard. So they could not have a fence of the height that would be required to obscure the dumpster in the manner that they are proposing, so that would require an additional variance. Also, we are waiting on legal advice as to whether or not the enclosure that is prescribed for dumpsters, even in the side yard, would constitute a fence, thereby requiring an additional variance. So it could be that there's a non-zero chance that the existing application requires additional variances based on that reading that we get from the city's legal advice.
That sounded like a defer.
Yeah.
So the reason why I wasn't clear on whether or not we defer or not, I think we're all after the same thing here, which is a dumpster in its present location, but that is attractive and that is obscured. The proposal that I put forth would have been a fence, not just a little fence around the dumpster, but around the entire rear side yard, and that would be an 8-foot fence, so nobody would ever see the dumpster ever again, which I think would be applauded by everybody. Staff pointed to the need for the variance because it's higher than a side yard or a street front yard. It is my reading of this of the UDO that this is neither a street front yard nor a front yard. This is a side yard. We abut private lots on both sides of us. One of those private lots has a private use alley. But it is still not a street front lot, and it's not a front lot. It's a side yard, and a side yard fence can be 8 feet. I think we're done here. I put up an 8-foot fence. Nobody sees my dumpster ever again, but I still need the variance to keep it where it is, because right now it's non-conforming. So I suppose you and I didn't speak directly about whether or not the treatment of an alleyway makes that a street front yard. My reading of the statute is that it does not. So.
I think we understand. Any other questions?
I do have a question, and this is just really more about the use of the property. It says in here, site description and history of property. According to Cobb County Property Information, the approximate building, primary building was constructed, blah, 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 currently utilized as senior residential homes. What is this in here for? It says
No, are you reading from the staff report? There was a reference to single-family homes that was an error. That was, that's correct.
That's been a huge confusion of mine, because so that helps.
I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear what the question was about the staff report.
Me and this microphone do not like each other. In the description of the use of the property, it says the second building is used for senior residential homes. Currently utilized as senior residential homes. Site description and history of property. There's no senior residential, except for the homeless guy that lives down behind.
I would 100% agree on that. I apologize for that oversight.
Thank you, because I thought I was the only one that had that in my description. Okay, thanks.
We did
What
that.
do you do there?
Import-export business that buys and sells things that are sold on TV, all those weird hoses and things like that.
As seen on TV.
Yes.
All right, perfect.
Just had to get that figured.
All right, that takes us down to mayor and council items, and apparently Councilmember Mason wants to talk about EV parking.
This is going to be super quick and easy, hopefully. But it came to my attention, I came across a resident in front of the mayor's building that was trying to get access to the EV parking station that we had recently installed. They had been trying 3 days to get their vehicle there, and all of those 3 days, there was a non-electric vehicle parked in those spaces. I'm not done yet. Don't get your button.
No, I'm distracted by the conversation happening out there, so.
No, I'm
that's
talking
why I
to
keep
Brian.
looking.
But anyway, so I guess they tried to get the police because they were afraid they were going to run out of power or not be able to charge their vehicle before they ran out of power. And the police said, oh, well, there's no rule that says you can't park a regular combustion engine in an EV parking space. And I thought, well, that's kind of crazy. Why are we spending money to put in EV parking spaces if we can't park? The parking spaces are consumed by dinosaur fuel. So anyway, that's kind of the crux of it. I just wanted, and apparently the only remedy is to have staff look into creating an ordinance for us to pass. And so all we're really needing to do is, I don't know if we have to do that on Tuesday, but just basically by consensus tell the staff to look into this and bring us back something in 30, 60, 90 days, whatever that is, correct?
Yeah, I mean, this conversation can suffice if the council's open to that, but we don't need to move it to Tuesday. But I wanted, John and I talked about this and wanted to make sure it was, because it would be staff time to look into proposed changes to the ordinance, the parking ordinance.
Is this also, those purple parking spots, is there anything to cover people parking in those longer than they're supposed to? That's the drop-off ones?
Actually, I do think that those are defined in our code. Mm-hmm.
What my research indicated too, and I thought that's kind of funny. A ride share you can't park in, but you can't, but you can park in the electric vehicle that cost us a significant amount of money to make them EV.
I think we tried to solve that at the time by increasing the rate if you left your electric vehicle charging for longer than a certain amount of hours, but we didn't think about non-electric vehicles just parking there.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's definitely a problem.
In the loophole by the other things, they turn it off in the app. They don't actually disconnect the car, because I've asked people about that. I see your car out there all the time, and they go like, oh yeah, you just turn it off in the app and the meter stops running. So there's a flaw in that system too.
Good to know. We'll look into that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
let's solve all the EV problems. Definitely need to. Anything else? Good. All right, that takes us down to public comments. The mayor is the presiding officer. All remarks shall be addressed to the city council as a body, not to individual members. Anyone wishing to speak shall come to the microphone. Give your name and address to the city clerk and limit remarks to 3 minutes unless further time is granted by council. No one can speak more than twice, and please do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. And with that, I'll open it up. Anyone wishing to speak to council this evening on any subject?
Matt or Sonny, you're the only two.
Yeah, you're the only two there.
Sonny, you got something for us? Nothing? Nothing? All
If
right.
I wanted to speak, do I have to go down there to do it?
You spoke enough today.
Yeah, Leslie, you've already used your time.
No, we are under assault from headlights. That car out there has been parked out there for at least 30 minutes with their headlights coming straight through this door. I think that we're
Yeah.
being assaulted.
Look this way.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll put my sunglasses on.
I don't believe
All
that's
right.
contemplated
We are
in our
out of
parking
here.
ordinance.